Today I'm going to be interviewing Susan. How are you, Susan? What's new?
Oh, not too bad. How are you?
Nah, I'm all right. Just got back down from Oxfordshire. Busy day. I got completely goodness, had a few too many drinks last night with my buddy. We were out in out at the pub. But I'm okay now. I'm not hungover or anything like that, so I'm fine.
That's good.
Um, so you said you've been busy today. What have you been busy doing?
Oh, today I had a doctor's appointments. I went to the gym. Had to run a couple errands. But it really wasn't that busy of a day for me. Um, Later on, we'll be busy, but typically I'm in graduate school, so I'm on vacation.
Oh, what are you doing in graduate school?
Right now, I'm in a master's program of English and innovative writing. Um, it's kind of like integrating fiction writing and literature, academics, and creative stuff. So,
That's interesting. And what made you want to do that?
I've been writing for about 3 to 4 years now, and I have some. I have one novel finished. I have a second one almost finished, and I started a third. It's a book series, and
Hmm.
I decided to go back to get some. It's like a collaborative program where we work together to improve each other's writing. And I felt that having a master's in English would help me to potentially get a teaching job.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if it will, but at least it'll give me a leg up when I do try. So, and networking, of course, and getting out there and talking to people also helps as well.
Okay, fair. And what made you want to become a writer?
That's a really good question. It's something that I've been thinking about doing probably since I was maybe early 20s. But I have a science background, and because I had a science background, I was kind of stuck in that field for a while. And then when I switched over to, I started taking English literature classes. That's when I started getting interested in it. I didn't really have an interest before that, other than the fact that I did like to read, and I did know that that's what I enjoyed. It was more like a subconscious thing for me, not something that I ever considered as a career. So I graduated in 2013 with another master's degree in humanities, and once I finished that, I knew I had all this time on my hands, and I thought I would just try to actually uh, organize my life so that I would just do full time writing and make sure that I had these goals, and the the goals allowed me to have a schedule every day and get have output and keep on working until I was done. And it was a really good exercise because I had never allowed myself to have that amount of time um, to just concentrate and focus on that. I was always either working or going to school. So, and I found that that's probably the best way because unless you can focus, you can't really dig deep into your mind enough to create um, like long pieces that I make. I my first book is almost 100 or almost 400 pages. This one is already over 400 pages, the one I'm working on now. So to be able to create a story and to create it with enough threads going and enough depth to it and meaning, you really need to focus. And I mean, it's not to say that someone can't write a novel without doing those things. I understand that you could, but in my case, I needed to do it. um, so
Okay, thank you. And what are the underlying themes of your writing?
um, well, like I said, it's a book series, but each book is um, concentrates on one of my female characters. And each of my female characters represents something. So I started out with 3, and they each represent like a trinity: mind, body, spirit. So the first book represents the character that is spirit. So I deal a lot in that one with relationships, with trauma, with the past, with how people can change the mistakes that they've made and to become a better person. So a lot of the themes in that book are I intertwine characters like kind of 6 degrees of separation, and to show how they're connected to those other characters and how they can help each other, and without even knowing directly who, some of the characters have never even met, but they're still affecting each other without having met. So I have multiple storylines that involve each character going through some kind of issue, whether it's trauma, whether it's divorce, whether it's all trying to monitor each other's kind of relationships while dealing with their own stuff, because each character has their own issues to deal with, but they're still helping each other. So
Okay. And what caused you to want to tie each of these characters to mind, body, and spirit?
let me think back. Oh, because initially it was that I cut myself into 3. That was my initial idea, that I would cut myself into 3 parts. Now, these characters are not me, and I try to tell people that whenever I say this, because they're not me. They're their own characters. But I wanted to take different facets of the issues that I have dealt with in my past, and approach them in these ways. So, like with the spirit, that particular character needed to kind of heal her past wounds and her past, the mistakes she's made, right? And then with body, she has to understand that she's taken too many risks, and she needs to understand that other people need to help her. And with what was the last one? Mind, she's the one that actually figures out the problem and who is to blame in this huge situation I created with a character who abuses another character. So she figures it out through clues. It's it was an interesting experience, because as I was creating these characters, it was more like I call it like a weaving. I was weaving all the threads together so that they connected, and kept weaving and weaving until they were one, kind of like a tapestry. And I found that splitting it into 3 really worked. It really did. So
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, thank you. And you said before that you used to be more of a scientist. What made you go into science first?
Well, I was one of those, when I was a kid, I was really good in math and good in science. I was a daughter of a science teacher. That's just what I did when I was young. I was kind of always geared towards that. And I think it was mostly my upbringing and strengths, of course.
Yeah.
I think that I was, teachers set, usually teachers you'll say, okay, you're good in this, you're good in that. So, and then they'll direct you to go in a certain direction. So no one ever questioned that I would go into science in some way because of my strengths. Looking back, I wish I would have realized that my interests lie more in literature and art than science, but back then it was okay, and I can't really change that because I was happy doing it. And I think that's just how life works, you know?
No, fair enough. And what did you decide to go into within science, and why?
Well, originally I was pre-med,
Mm.
but because my father wanted me to go to medical school, but I knew that I didn't want to touch anybody. I know this sounds crazy, but that it's just like a fear of mine that I don't want to touch people. And I didn't want to tell him I didn't want to go to medical school. And eventually I had to tell him, so that at that point, I decided to go into pharmacy. And then I spent a couple years trying to get into pharmacy school, and I couldn't get into pharmacy school. So then I said I want to do forensics, which definitely probably would have been good for me, except that there just weren't any jobs.
Mm.
I ended up finishing clinical laboratory science as a major, and then I did find a job, but it wasn't forensics. It was in a hospital lab, and
Mm.
so I was doing chemistry and toxicology.
Mm.
Which I enjoyed until it became too routine. I don't like doing the same thing every day. So that's when I started going back to school, because I knew I couldn't do that. I mean,
Mm.
it's just not me to
Yeah.
do the same things. So
That makes sense. And what was it about pharmacy that you couldn't get in? Why couldn't you pass their parameters?
my grades were not good. I had a
Okay.
lot of C's. And like organic chemistry, I had a C in that. Um, I'm trying to think back which ones I had the C's in, but it was those C's that got me because it was really competitive.
Yeah, I bet, especially with something like pharmacy. Mm.
Yeah.
You have to be perfect with everything. It's very. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Mm. And how did you take not getting into pharmacy?
Oh, I was fine.
Mm.
I didn't, I didn't have really a passion for it. So it's not like, it was more like I was looking at, I wanted to get a job and make
Yeah.
money. That's all I really was concerned about back then. I don't know if that's something that people in college do, but that's what I did. I just wanted a job, and I wanted to make a lot of money and be done with school.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's quite practical.
so
Okay. Mm. And mm, in what situations are you at your most confident, Susan?
I'm sorry.
In what situations are you at your most confident?
Problem solving, I think. If someone comes to me with a problem that they're having an issue with, I'm trying to think of an example. Like if my mom calls me and says her furnace isn't working and she can't figure out why, and then she gives me all the details, I usually can figure out. I'm not a very mechanically inclined person, but I can usually figure out exactly what happened. Well, you had a bird fly in your chimney and it's stuck in there, and that kind of thing. Problem solving issues like that. Or like at my job, they used to come to me if one of our specimens was missing and they couldn't find it, they give me all those problems because I could
Mm.
find the specimen, I could locate it and track it and figure out what happened and why and who's to blame, whatever, for losing it. But mostly, and it's fun for me. I like doing that. So,
Mm. What is it about finding things out that you enjoy doing?
you mean problem solving
Yeah,
or?
especially you said it's more to do with sort of like finding out who's to blame, finding out how the specimen got in there. What do you like about that?
I think knowing that I'm uncovering things, it's almost like it's an something that's like a needle in the haystack, like it's embedded in there and it's covered up, and it's almost like an uncovering and an unveiling.
Mm.
Um, um, it's kind of similar to I said how I weave the writing. it's like a weaving process. And in this case, it would be like an unraveling process of locating whatever it is, or figuring out the issue underlying whatever it is.
Okay. And in what situations are you at your least confident?
Oh, it's something that I've been getting better at recently, but for a long time it was huge. It held me back so much. Being assertive, speaking up. Like, I would always have issues in like class because I was so quiet and I didn't want to say anything because I didn't have the confidence to speak up, or to speak up when I knew I needed to. And even as a kid, I used to, my mom used to try to get me better at it. Like, she told me that I used to, like, she'd write notes for me to bring to school, to bring to like the nurse or to one of the administration or whatever. And she'd find the notes in the closet because I'd refuse to do it.
What
So
what
I
is
think
it?
that's probably my biggest problem.
Okay. And what is it about those confrontation situations when you're having to, say something which may be uncomfortable? What about that do you feel you need to avoid?
I don't want to get yelled at. I don't want to get yelled at, I guess. Or like judgment if I'm doing the wrong thing, or if I'm overstepping my boundaries, that kind of thing.
Okay. And are you someone who easily loses your temper?
No.
Hmm.
I mean, I do. I can lose my temper, but when I do, it's really bad.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really even keel
Mm.
and very patient person.
Mhm.
But if I genuinely get mad, it's pretty bad. So I usually kind of like keep that under wraps so that it doesn't happen.
I see. Do you have many friends, Susan?
Close friends. I probably have about 4 close friends, and I have a lot of acquaintances. I would say I'm better at making acquaintances than making close friends.
Okay.
I guess, I suppose. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe it's even. It might be even.
Okay. So do you go out and meet new people often?
Yes. Yes. Pretty often. I mean, being a writer, I spend a ton of time by myself. And I'm used to that. I'm fine with it. I don't mind solitude, but usually like I'll have usually one day a week where I need to go out and socialize with people because it's too much for me to be by myself. So,
Fair enough. And why do you like to go out and meet new people?
opportunities, I guess, or just I enjoy good question. Why do I want to go out and meet new people? I think I just enjoy new things and new experiences, and it's almost like it's an additional connection in my life. Like, I open up a new door, and then with each person I meet, I keep opening new doors, and you never know what's going to be behind that door. It could be, it could be a new job, could be, um, your new best friend, or you could, like my book, 6 Degrees of Separation. You might end up meeting another person that they know. I think that's why.
Okay. How comfortable are you with uncertainty?
Ooh, not comfortable. Not comfortable. I have issues with that because I'm kind of I find that I have to control a lot of things and plan things so that it's controlled. So when uncertainty hits, it's almost like I can't believe I put all that work in, and now all of a sudden this thing happened, and I don't know what I did wrong. That, you know what I mean? I mean, I suppose there's certain things that do happen and you can't control them, but I think that's why I have a hard time, because I spend so much of my time trying to prevent it from happening, and it does. Um, and it's like a blind spot for me, almost like it'll come out of nowhere, and
Mm.
and I don't know. Yeah. So
So
not good.
what's an example of something happening where you've worked really hard and suddenly something uncertain has come along and
Well, I mean, I'm a cancer survivor, so when
oh
I was
goodness.
diagnosed with cancer, that was completely
Mm.
out of the blue, and it threw me for a loop, and I had all these plans, and then it just I mean, maybe it happens for everybody this way,
Mm.
but it just changed everything, and it was very hard for me to adjust after that. I mean, I did, of course, but you have no choice. But it was very difficult. Or let's just say that I have a conflict in one of my relationships and I didn't see that coming. That's usually I completely lose it when that happens, because I I I don't know. I I don't know why. Don't know why.
That's okay. It's okay. Susan, do you find there are many occasions when things happen you just don't know why?
I'm sorry. What was
Do you find it's often very difficult for you to know why things happen or why you've reacted in some way?
No, I don't think I have trouble knowing why. Once they happen, I understand why.
Okay.
It's just that I didn't see it, right? But
Mm.
as soon as it happens, I'm like, okay, that's why. How come I didn't see that? Because I already knew why. Do you understand? Like,
There.
uh, if it's kind of like when you're driving in a car and you have your side mirror and you remove the side mirror, and then you get in an accident.
Mm.
You know why. I mean, you know what happened after the fact, but you didn't know what happened before the fact. So
I see.
that uncertainty is the side mirror on the car.
I, I see. No, fair enough. So it's piecing together once it's happened, that's fine. It's just having seen, looking ahead before it happens, that's the tricky part. Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
Mhm. And you said you had plans. Are you inclined to make many plans?
I My plans consist of usually a week ahead. I will structure the days out and make sure I have everything taken care of. But I generally don't like, you know how some people will make plans 5 months ahead of time, and they'll say, you set this date for me because we're doing this. That drives me completely nuts, because I can't do I mean, I not only can I not do that, I don't want to do that. For me, the future plans are general, vague, because I know that lots of things can happen in between. from from now until then, there's a lot that can happen and change. So to make a plan, you need to be really flexible so that you can expect that flexibility to come in, and you're not tied down too much, because I don't really like that. Like,
Hmm.
I know that recently, over the summer, someone asked me, okay, we're going to have Thanksgiving together, which we just had a couple weeks ago. And I said, sure, at the time, when I'm like, okay, this is the summer and that's November. Okay, sure. And then I made plans with somebody else for Thanksgiving. And I didn't realize it until like a month before. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I just don't do that. So
Okay. So what's an example of one of your more general, flexible plans?
well, like, so for the year 2019, I had five goals I needed to achieve. Um, I had a list of contests I was going to enter my writing in. I was going to finish my one book and then start getting another book published, and graduate school. I don't know if that was 5, but that's just the general plan for a year, because I know I'll have a year to do it, and it's a reasonable amount of time. So then I'll have a 5-year plan where, like, right now my 5-year plan, I think, is to have the book series done and to move to, I want to buy an old house. And so that'll be within 5 years. And then I'll have a 10-year plan. My 10-year plan is, I it's going to sound crazy, but I want to have my own corporation over 10 years, so that, it's vague, of course, and it could be anything, but it's kind of like a bucket list thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you said before that you had a tendency to try to control everything, and then uncertain things happen and it falls apart.
Yeah.
Could you give me an example of where you're trying to control everything?
I think I get it's mostly I'm very anxious person, so I have like anxieties. So then I end up thinking too much about particular things. Let's just say, I'm trying to think of an example, but I'll like get overly worried about something that I shouldn't be worried about, but yet, and then at the same time I'm worried about that, then whatever I'm not worried about will, that particular thing that I'm not worried about is the one that's an issue.
Okay.
So I'm very controlling, but not enough. Not enough that that I'm covering everything.
Okay. No, fair enough. It's because the impression you sometimes give when you describe yourself, it gives a different impression than what we actually find when we explore a little bit more deeply.
Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, that's fine. No, that's useful. You know what, Susan? This is also what caught me out the first time we interviewed. Um, some
Mm-hmm.
things you say seem like one thing, but they're actually not. Okay.
Okay. I see.
Okay. Let's see. What else? So you're married with kids, aren't you?
I'm what?
Are you married with children?
Yes, I'm married and I have a 15-year-old son.
Okay. And what makes your husband your husband? Why him?
You mean how do we get along, or?
Hmm.
I would
Why
say
is he
that.
your husband?
I'm sorry.
Why is he your husband?
Okay, well, first of all, he's my husband because we got married.
Yeah.
um, but the reason why we are together is, I think, because we make really good business partners.
Mhm.
From day one, it was pretty clear that we worked really well together.
Mhm.
Like, we can take any kind of project and figure it out because both of us have strengths that the other one doesn't have, but yet I always say that we're similar too. It's a very weird dynamic, but when we got married, that's what other people thought that we had. They're like, he can cover that, you can cover that, and you'll be really successful. And we have been that way together. I think a lot of times, though, we get competitive with each other because we do have overlaps in what we're good at. Like, we're both trying to take control. So, like, we're both controlling people. So, like, he's trying to take control, I'm trying to take control, and a lot of times that causes issues where one person needs to step back. And I think for a while there it was me, when my son was smaller, because I knew I had to be home, and I had to be the domestic person and take care of the house and everything. But once my son started getting older, then I'm back to we were back to butting heads. And now at this point, he's like, okay, maybe I'll let you take control. I'm like, that sounds good. But it's always been something with us.
Yeah. And what drives this desire to be successful, to make money?
Drives why you want to make money. For me, money is freedom. For number one, it's freedom. If you have more money, you're able to do more and able to accomplish more. So you can, let's just say that someone just gave you $100,000. Well, depending on what you do with that $100,000, you could increase your opportunities and chances to actually create something new, like a new business or a new charity foundation or anything like that. And to me, money is kind of a stepping stone to uh, uh, creating a place where you make the decisions and you can do good things in the world, and potentially um, almost create a legacy, like like a seed, that will grow into something, even better than you thought it could be. So
Mm. Thank you, Susan. That's very helpful. Mm. Mm. So, for the time when you were the one looking after the house, when you had your child growing, was that an easy period of
hmm
time for you, or a more difficult period of time for you?
well, I'm not going to say it was hard. It wasn't hard. I didn't have to work, which I was incredibly blessed that I didn't have to work.
Mm.
If I had to work, it would have been much different. I absolutely enjoyed spending a lot of time with my son, but I did it in my own way. I was more of the type of mom that we would go out and explore the world. I wasn't the type to stay home. So everything was about us giving him experiences rather than, I'm not that much of a nurturer. So I'm not going to sit at home and, you know, make things so that he's comfortable and we stay and more like a cozy family life. That was never me. It was more, okay, let's conquer this and let's go travel. He's been traveling since he was 6 months old, you know, because for me it's all about experiences and learning and knowledge and him gaining all this so that he's been exposed to it and he can make his choices and with the amount of knowledge that I give him. So for me as a mom, that was always my role. Yes, I took care of him. I cook and clean and then do those things, but that's not what I particularly enjoyed about being a mom. Um, uh, More um, being that facilitator of him being in the world now, and he's going to explore it. So
Okay, thank you. Mm. And if you mind me asking, Susan, because cancer is a horrific thing to go through, but where did you find the strength to overcome that?
quite honestly, people ask me this all the time, and I
Mm.
just, something inside of me just like was just like, okay, I have to conquer this. And every day I did what I needed to do, and I never
Mm.
stopped. I just never stopped to even think that I had any other choice but to
Mm.
survive and get through it. It just, you know, I immediately lost like 30 pounds within a month. I was working out every day. I cleaned up my diet. I just, and then I started a support group, and I met a lot of people that helped psychologically, and I made sure I had the right doctors. I explored to make sure I had the right treatment. So I had to go and and go into all the medical journals because my cancer is rare. So I had to find out every single article written about it, make sure they're giving me the right treatment. It was difficult because I was like in this gray area where they didn't know what to do with me. And I wasn't sure who to trust. So I had to do the work myself. So finally, I'm like, okay, our cancer hospital here, they knew what they were doing. They gave me the right treatment. I also had this special radiation treatment where my heart was protected because that's an issue with someone as young as I was. So I had that, and it was almost like I look back and say, oh gosh, psychologically it was horrific, but I also got to prove my worth too at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I got to prove that I can do this, and I got through it. And so I guess it's a 50-50 good and bad experience. But
Okay. How do you deal with people who you don't like?
what do I do with people I don't like?
Yeah.
So if I encounter someone I don't like,
Yeah.
For the most part, I'll avoid them. I'll try to stay away and try to not have conflict with them unless I have to. So it's more like avoidance than anything else. But if someone is in my face and wants to conflict with me, I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to back down. But I try not to do that because I know I've had really bad experiences in this case, and I don't want to go through that upset and through that upheaval. Just people are nasty and vengeful, and I don't have time for that. I know just avoid it. Past experiences taught me to avoid those people that I don't like.
Okay. It's interesting also that you don't back down, just because I know you said that earlier in your life you used to be fearful of actually confronting people. So what happened then?
I've had some pretty nasty experiences. I was in a relationship, domestic abuse, and I had to deal with his family. And I think that changed me a lot because I learned, and I really needed to protect myself because no one else was going to do it. So, literally I was going out into public and was getting threatened and was getting a lot of things thrown at me at bars. And I think after that, things changed for me. And I mean, not completely. I think I always have that part of me where that hesitancy to assert myself, but I know how to protect myself if something does happen now. And that protection is more, I need to get away. I can't stay. It's too dangerous. So it was a learning experience.
Makes sense. Do you have a good eye for detail?
No. No. Well, you know what? It depends. Because sometimes I'll fixate on details, but for the most part, if I were to walk into the room today and if someone would say, did something in this room get moved? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
Okay.
And I don't care either. Like, I know my husband will be bothered by, like, we have a piece of the wallpaper in this room that's like a little torn.
Yeah.
And he obsesses over that tear. And I'm like, I don't care about the tear. No one sees the tear. So, so probably not.
Okay. And is it easy, going back to some of my earlier questioning, is it easy for you to know if you like someone or not?
Yeah. Yeah, usually I'm pretty good at that. I will know. Although in the past, I haven't trusted my judgment. Like, my first impression of someone might be, oh my God, I can't stand this person. Oh, who are they? And then I don't like them. And then, a week later, they'll talk to me and try to be friends with me, and I'll be completely willing to be their friend, even though the first moment I didn't like them. So that's another thing I've learned is trust my first judgment, because a lot of times it
Oh, the
was
first judgment was
right.
right. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Susan, I think I've asked all the questions I want to
Okay.
ask. Now, remind me, what types have I given you in the past?
Okay. Well, way back
Mm.
when World Oceanic Society just first started and I first joined, I think the first type was the EII. Then it was IEE. Then we considered LSE. Then I think at that point we moved up to beta after that. Then it gets a little foggy, and then it was EIE for a while. And I think that's it.
Okay.
No, it was LIE too at the last interview.
Oh, yes.
LIE.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Right. Susan, I think I'm not going to go ahead and give you a completely different type to the ones we've given before, but instead, I think IEE was the right one.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think so.
Okay.
If you look at how you write your books, right, there's an emphasis on aspects of yourself, so sort of like semi, but not really confessional, where it's about different things you've learned, different ways to improve and get better, learning experiences of different characters, and you like the sort of complexity of weaving that together. But the idea is of personal development and self-growth in different situations.
Okay.
So already that's telling me a lot more towards delta than beta. People are going to want to sort of stamp their identity onto reality to show some version of themselves and have people validate that. Instead, for you, it's more rather than trying to change the world with an expression. It's more, here's some lessons which I've learned and how I've developed and grown. Maybe that can help people or not. And an ongoing theme in your work is a lot of extroverted logic, trying to help things, make things better, accumulate resources, why it gives me freedom to make some of my own decisions, which is why we thought LIE and LSE in the past. And you do come across a bit rather LSE-ish, I should say. So definitely extroverted logic there, and I think quite a bold position, bold, valued, inert position. So either mobilizing or leading. But what I think is also clear is extroverted intuition. Why are you doing all this or success? Because it gives you more possibilities, new opportunities. And this idea that if you leave behind a legacy, some sort of seed, as you say, which can lead to something new you haven't even considered, all these new possibilities opening up. Now you start by saying legacy, and people, oh, is that more introverted intuition? But not really, because it's not a set plan. It's more, where could it go? How could it open up? And you talk about plan, but after exploring further, it's not really about, is in the sort of detailed, I'm going to be here in this particular date. It's not actually detail oriented. It's more general goals for your sense of growth and personal development in the future.
Right.
So again, it's an excellent logic motivation. And towards the end, I was trying to break down, okay, which one's stronger? Is it the introverted sensation or the introverted ethics? And it's the introverted ethics. You got that sense, that personal sense of who people are. Now, sometimes you may doubt that. You may want to keep things open and not judge and close down possibilities. Maybe be nice to them, see if they may be nicer. Sometimes you end up being right. You realize you're right all along because introvert ethics is quite strong. But you want to give people a chance nonetheless. Your extroverted sensation doesn't make sense as demonstrative. You've managed to build up a lot more willpower, but to start off with, that you had a lack of assertiveness, you had to learn that over time, to learn to be more tough and more assertive with that. So and in a way, it is a bit unusual that you started off with a desire to make money, but when we explored, it made sense why. It gives you more possibilities and makes you appear more extroverted. But now, when you actually got more freedom, you can see you're going into that more reflective, more creative space. And I thought that's who you feel you're really meant to be, not really the sort of scientific orientedness, although you do like the learning part of science. You like the idea of teaching your child to have new opportunities, new growth, and now they're free to just explore. And it's not so targeted. You don't have like a specific thing in mind, like a clear goal or outcome you want them to reach. It's more equipping them with that sort of knowledge to go and explore and open up. So that's what I'm saying. Lots of valued extroverted intuition, lots of valued extroverted logic, both of them being quite pushed. And within that, it seems to me introverted ethics is also there, pretty strong and valued. Relationships are very important to you. And you talk about how horrible it is when a relation doesn't go quite right. You're also quite rapidly and swiftly making more acquaintances. You're quite flexible with introverted ethics. Not about sticking to a very select few, but you do have your sense of who's close and who is not so close. But you're also rapidly accumulating more and more introverted ethics, which makes sense to me in the creative rather than the leading. It's more flexible. It serves the new opportunities, possibilities of networking. And introverted sensation seems to me to be the weakest of the four, although you do have aspects of it in yourself. Just allowing yourself just to be, allowing yourself just to do the things which are natural to you. That sort of language. You're not trying to force everything out of yourself. Your area of realization is, I shouldn't stop be forcing myself so much. I just allow myself just to explore and allow that natural development to take its natural pace, which is more introverted sensation. So that's why I think IE makes sense. I know we've also, a lot of people thought introverted logic was a weaker thing for you because you had trouble pinning things down for yourself.
Right.
And one thing I noticed, I've personally found over time that IEs are some of the hardest people to type, because I think they have so many different ways of interpreting the words they're saying, but they can say something and you may get the wrong end of the stick of what exactly they're meaning by giving that particular impression. So I've often found that IEs can then give almost inconsistent descriptions of themselves. Not that it's false, it's because it's just they've interpreted it one way and now they're interpreting a different way, and it all seems it all has an element of truth to it, but it's not an overall clear picture, which is easy for someone who's giving them a diagnostic interview to work out. But I just had to get used to that over time. This is how IEs tend to be. So I can see the lack of introverted logic there. And I think you're a lot of extroverted logic, not much sign of introverted logic, which again.
Okay. Good. Yeah. I'm on board.
I'd also say the introverted intuition seem to be either vulnerable or ignoring. It could be either. Because I think it's there. I think you are aware of how things are. I don't think I have this view that, just work really, really hard now and everything will turn out all right. I mean, you're aware of it, but sometimes you see them going towards other possibilities and suddenly something smashes you and you go, oh goodness, I maybe should pay a bit more attention there. So
that explains it.
I think ignoring makes sense. It could be vulnerable, but it's not, it's clearly not something you focus on so much. Yeah. Does that help? Does it help?
That just kind of solved what I was thinking about. That if I would be ignoring it and it wouldn't be on my radar, it's probably why when something happens, I'm like, oh well, I knew that already.
Yeah.
But I ignored it.
I do stupid things sometimes. It's because I'm curious. I know it's a bad idea, but I thought I'll just try that anyway. Right. Zara told me off just the other day because I said, I dipped some tissue paper in the candle because I just wanted to see how quickly it would catch fire. But it's obviously a dumb thing to do, but I was just curious. And it did catch quite a bit more quickly than I realized. I blew it out quickly, but she wasn't very happy I was taking those silly risks. But that's sort of that's a tentative extra intuition. You know it's going to happen. It's not as if you're blind to it, but you just sort of
You don't really care, right?
No, you're curious. You're too curious. It kills the cat sometimes, but
Right. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Susan, do you have any questions for me?
Let's see. I think you pretty much covered all the questions I had. I spent a little period of time actually considering this type, and it seemed to fit. I read all the descriptions. I'm not exactly sure why I started doubting. I think the reason why I started doubting was because I feel like I'm very much focused on like SI stuff, but it makes sense that if I'm not getting it, or if no one's helping me with it, then I'm going to probably be trying to supply it myself. So would that be the case? Like if someone isn't giving me introverted sensation information, then I'm probably going to be trying to self-supply, or do you know what I mean?
Hello? Okay. Hi, Susan, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
Hi, sorry about that. It does that sometimes at my parents. She's saying if you don't get introverted sensation, that you try and get some of that yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, now, at least for me, I find I'm trying to satisfy that itch. I don't know how to satisfy it in a way which works for me, which actually satisfies me and is sustainable. So it's often not satisfying, but it's like something I need to scratch. I want to try and get myself as comfortable as possible. I want to try and create a situation where I'm just in absolute bliss in my surroundings. For an IE, it's less about the emotional comfort side, more about a sense of convenience, things being just still and calm, and just nothing being wasted, everything being convenient and working smoothly. I'm trying to find that just that sense of still flow in the moment, and it can be elusive.
Right. Yeah, for me, it's like I feel like I'm always on this fence of falling off the fence. One little thing will throw me off the fence because I can't stay balanced up there. I try, but I end up connecting with other people that will help me to do that. That's why I worked with a personal trainer for a year and spent a lot of money doing it, because she every day she was trying to guide me towards the right way to do it. And she did help for a long time, but I'm not able to do it myself.
Makes sense. And you're using some introverted ethics there to bridge the gap by making a close connection with someone who can help.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that works. Susan, would you be comfortable with this video being made publicly available? You don't have to if you don't want to. It's entirely your choice.
Probably not, just because of what I said. So if we could, I mean, it's fine to put it in the group and everything, and
yeah, that's what I meant. I apologize. That's what I meant, in the group.
Yeah, in the group is fine, as long as it's not public to the public. It's fine.
Yeah, no, fine. Okay, I'll post a link to it in the group. I'll make sure people know not to share the link with anyone.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make that clear. Now, someone may be a jerk; they might share it, but I can't promise that.
Oh, I understand.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Okay, I just don't want it searchable.
Yeah,
searchable under my name.
No, that's fine. That's going to be, if it's not going to be public, it won't be searchable, so that'll be fine.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for doing this again with me. It's very helpful. I'm glad off my mind.
I'm glad it cleared up a few years of back and forth.
Oh my gosh. But I just really wanted to do this so that it's set and everybody can watch it if anyone has questions. Yeah, anyone can come back and say, okay, let's watch her video. This is what was said. This is what Jack said. It seems pretty clear cut.
Yeah. So one very last thing. I didn't cover your demonstrator function, but I think it's quite clear that you've identified with being an emotional person. You identify with being EIE for a long time. I think it makes sense that if you're going to identify like that, it will be because extroverted ethics is demonstrative. If your values show delta.
Yes.
So I think that works. That's just the last thing. But yeah, Susan, thank you. And have a lovely rest of your evening.
Oh, you too. Thank you, Jack. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Take care.